Right, this lesson is just an overview on your research paper. Um, so we start with step one, getting started. Make sure you ask the teacher every single question you can possibly think of about what the topic is supposed to be, length, and so on. Ask your teacher what format is it, MLA, APA, Turabian, etc. How long, and does that include the outline and the works cited? Does your teacher expect to approve your topic or thesis statement? Um, will your teacher want an outline? Will they want to see a draft? I always like to see drafts simply because that assures me that you wrote the paper, because it's too hard to create a draft from a finished paper. Ask about whether your teacher wants a cover. Personally, I hate those silly little plastic covers. Um, One of them slides and they all fall on the floor. Find out what information your teacher wants on the cover page. Will they want all your research turned in with the paper? Is your teacher asking for a works cited, which is just the sources you used in your paper? Or do they want a bibliography, everything you looked at? And what kind of sources can you use, and so on. Ask your questions now, because excuses will not be accepted later. Um, Plan on spending at least 60% of your time researching and preparing your first draft. It must be typed unless your teacher tells you otherwise, but to be quite honest, all statistics point to higher grades for those things that are typed. Use a 10 or 12 point type and a common font. Type on one side of the paper, and you will use parenthetical in-text documentation. Just a good habit to get involved in as you are working is, even if you look at something and you're not sure you're going to use it, write it down anyway. You would be surprised how many times at the end you suddenly decide you want something. So copy down the bibliographic information. Some of you might want to use note cards. Some of you want to photocopy the pages. Remember, we give credit to both exact quotes and paraphrases and summaries. 1-inch margins all around, and go visit the Writing Center if you need help. Alright, these are not exactly right in terms of I'm trying to get as much in there as I can. So how to write a research paper. So this would be your first page. Double space, indent 5 spaces. Make sure that you have 1-inch margins. Make sure you have it set on left justification. And keep in mind, you are doing a research paper. I can't tell you how many papers I have received where not a single piece of documentation is in there, and the person says, oh, well, I already knew about the topic. But that wasn't your assignment. Your assignment is a research paper. You will be using a combination of notes, your own conclusions, direct quotes, and so forth. Take a minute to just read through this. Now this one is a special case. Right here you can see that it is a longer quote. In this case it's more than 4 lines, and in which case you would indent 5 spaces. I'm sorry, I need to change that. Indent 5 spaces, not 10. 10 spaces if you're starting a paragraph. Note no quotation marks, and the author's name and page number goes there. Page 2 and all of your paper pages will have your last name on them and your page number. You don't need it on the first page. You do not need it on your title page. Sometimes there's going to be a quote inside a quote, and in that case, note here, I'm quoting what the writer wrote, and then the writer quoted someone else. So I have my quote for the writer, and here's the single quotation mark for what the writer included in quotes. and then we continue on and you have your end quotes there. If you mention the author's name in text, you don't have to use the author's name in the parentheses. And in this one, we're still continuing from the same author mentioned earlier. Sometimes if you've got 2 authors, you name them both. 3 authors, you name all 3. And beyond 3, you go to author 1, who is the more famous of the authors, and et al., which means everybody else. Sometimes your author will have quoted somebody else and you can't get the original source, in which case what you will do is use the term quoted in, and then the author of your work and their page number. You can use an ellipsis, which indicates text is missing. You can have an ellipsis and then your quote. You can have the ellipsis in the middle, or you can have your ellipsis in the end. And if this is actually the end of the sentence, there'll be 4 periods because you have your ellipsis and then your closing period. Sometimes you'll have extra information in square brackets. The term SIC means the author made an error. It also can be used, for example, here they've written color in the British format, and you didn't misspell it, but that's the way the author wrote it. Make sure you've got a good schedule for doing your work. It's important that you keep in mind Murphy's Law is never more in place than when you are writing a research paper. One time I actually remember writing my paper. It's 2:30 in the morning. My ribbon broke on my printer. So that was okay. I had one upstairs. I went upstairs, grabbed the replacement, and it was old and it also tore. In the next morning when I called the store, I couldn't find one. They were out. So keep in mind, if anything can go wrong, it will. Good luck on your paper. This is a list of all the works you've included in your paper, the works cited, and there's a fair amount of information. The word title works cited is at the 1-inch margin of your paper, and just the first letters are capitalized, and it is centered on your page. When you give your first entry, it's going to be at the 1-inch margin, and the second and subsequent are indented 5 spaces. This is called a hanging indent. It continues being double spaced, and it continues the page numbering. All right, and the following pages are just some samples of how you can a basic overview of what needs to be in your works cited. And you need to know this so that when you're in the library doing research, you make sure you copy down the right information. These are all found in your handbook, and this is part of the reason why I tell people do not sell back your handbook at the end of this class. Save it. You're going to be doing a lot of writing, and you need to make sure you've got the information on how to do it in future papers. Sometimes, like on this paper, you're going to want a formal outline page. This is different from your working outline. This is the one that you write after you've written the paper. All right, you can see we write up here thesis statement. And you actually do write the word thesis statement with a colon, and then you actually type it in. This is what it needs to look like: Roman numeral 1, capital A, 1, lowercase, and then in parentheses, and so on. If you have a 1, you must have a 2. an A, you must have a B. You do not need to have a C. You just but you do have to have 2 levels. And if you go to the next page, please notice how your outline is numbered. We use lowercase Roman numerals. All right, folks. Good luck working on your paper and allow yourself plenty of time.